Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar hosted by RMC Asia. My name is Alicia, and I will be guiding you through our session today. And I'm joined by Sandra, who will be answering your questions and sharing insights about our cultural exchange programs. Hi, Sandra.
Hi, Alicia. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. I'm Sandra. I'm a host of Relations Team Lead here at RMC Asia.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much for joining, Sandra. So with that being said, let's start our session here. So first of all, before we move on to all the questions and answers, I would just like to give a quick introduction to RMC Asia for those of you who are new here. So RMC Asia is an organization based in Bangkok, Thailand, and we specialize specifically in cultural exchange programs within the hospitality and tourism sector. So what this means is that we partner directly with luxury hotels and resorts across Asia and the Middle East. So we work with hotels in destinations like Thailand, the UAE, Maldives, Hong Kong, Qatar, and many more. And our main goal is basically to create opportunities for hospitality students, recent graduates, and young professionals who want to gain international work experience. All right, and another thing is that this year we are actually celebrating our 10-year anniversary. So it's been a whole decade of RMC Asia, and we're very excited to continue serving students and young professionals for many more years to come. Okay, so without further ado, let's dive into our session. So first of all, let's begin with one of the biggest questions that we often hear. How does the matching process actually work from start to finish? All right, Sandra, so I give you the mic here. Let's begin.
So the matching process involves several steps. The first step is identifying matching criteria. So what we do is we reach out to our host hotels and resorts that we work with, gather the information that they're looking for, and we try to match you to what they're looking for. So we will look at department, availability, duration, sometimes nationality. Once we determine the candidates or participants that match with what the hotel is looking for and that the hotel matches with what you're looking for, we share your information to them. We send you interview invitations with key details like the hotel, the location, where it's located, the role itself. And if we have additional information such as allowance or other benefits at that stage, we'll sometimes share that with you as well. Once you've agreed to join the interview, if time allows, we'll run a prep call before the interview. In this call, we'll give you all kinds of tips on how to have a successful interview. Once the interview is conducted, sometimes even on the same day or the following morning, so these things can sometimes go very quickly, we will then follow up with the host for feedback. We usually follow up 1 or 2 days after the interview has taken place. And then the host will get back to us with a decision. This can, of course, vary. Sometimes their answers come very quickly. Other times it can take up to a week and a half or so. But once a decision is made, we notify you right away. If the decision is positive, we'll give you the offer, and you have 3 to 5 days to accept. In that time, you can ask us any questions.
All right, that's great, Sandra. Thank you so much for explaining this. So just as a quick recap for everyone, the matching process happens after you have already registered with RMC Asia. So what this means is that leading up to the matching process itself, first of all, of course, you'll be conducting the pre-screening interview with one of our career development specialists here at RMC Asia. And then, of course, we will let you know whether you're accepted or not. And at this stage is when you will decide whether you confirm your registration. And once all of these steps are followed and we collect a couple of documents from you, this is when we will be ready to begin the matching process, and we start introducing you directly to our hotel partners. All right. And then another common question that we get a lot from candidates is whether they can choose their specific property For example, the exact hotel or hotel brand, or even the location, like maybe their dream city, for example?
Yes, so it's very important to note that candidates can select a country. You can select multiple countries if you're interested in different destinations. However, you cannot choose a specific hotel, brand, or property. You can't even choose a specific city either. So if, for example, you choose the UAE, you cannot tell us, I'm only interested in Dubai. Or if you choose Thailand, you cannot say, I'm only interested in Bangkok. You need to be open to across the country, so across the destination that you select.
All right, thank you for explaining this, Sandra. And just to add on to what Sandra has just mentioned, sometimes when we post opportunities on our website, we might mention a specific hotel brand and a specific city. But this is usually just a general opportunity. And if you apply for that, we will still go through the same application process and the same process of identifying your preferences. So just as an example, even if you went on our website and you saw an opportunity called intern at front office at Marriott in Dubai, UAE, and you applied specifically for that, we will still process your application in a general manner. So we will check your general eligibility, and then we'll connect with you for a pre-screening discussion, and we'll find out if you're interested in any other countries, or maybe any other departments. So just remember to be open-minded when you're applying for a position. All right, and then another thing is, in some cases, even if a candidate applies for a specific department and a specific country, is there a possibility that we might send them opportunities from countries they haven't selected?
Yes, this can very much happen sometimes. Sometimes we will suggest locations that are not in your initial list. We will only do this in the case if the opportunity at the specific hotel that we have that is outside your chosen destination matches your profile, if it's with what you're looking for or what you've stated that you're looking for, and would help improve the chances of placement. So if there's ever an opportunity that arises and we think that you would be a good fit, you might get an email from someone in our operations department sharing the opportunity with you. However, since this is outside of your chosen destinations, you have 100% the decision on whether you want to have your CV shared or not. If you're not interested at all in the position, you can simply let us know. We never share your CV for these type of opportunities without your approval first. However, it can happen often because our goal is, of course, to find you the fastest and the best opportunities. And sometimes those may be in similar destinations, but not the exact destination that you selected. So we do encourage you to keep an open mind.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Sandra. I think this explains it very well. So with that being said, I think we can move on to talking a little bit more about what exactly host hotels are looking for. Because Sandra, I believe you work much with hotels, so you have a host relations position, which means that you're very well informed about what host hotels are looking for and kind of what types of vacancies they might have, seasons, and so on. So all that being said, let's start with the qualities of candidates. So what kind of qualities, personality traits, or skills do host hotels prioritize in candidates that apply for positions?
So in talking to the different hosts that we have across our destinations, some of the points that come up the most as the core qualities that they're looking for, I would say, is a positive attitude and being very adaptable. In the hospitality sector, this is really important. Also, good communication skills and teamwork, important for you to be able to work with others and that you're able to understand others and that they are able to understand you and that you can work well together, as well as professional appearance and etiquette. This is specifically important for roles in front office, F&B, very front-facing roles where you'll be speaking with customers on the daily, professional appearance is very, very, very important. I would say those are the six main ones.
All right, thank you for explaining that, Sandra. So I feel like from what you've said, it's not only the actual hard skills or technical skills, let's say, it's also quite a bit about somebody's personality and how they behave and what kind of attitude they have to, let's say, working with guests or working with colleagues even.
Absolutely.
All right. And with that in mind, we do get this question a lot from newer applicants or those who are unsure about whether or not they can apply. Can we accept a candidate who has a non-hospitality background? And would they also be accepted by a host organization?
So yes, you can apply even if you don't have a hospitality background. This is an internship. That's the point of the role, to help you improve, to learn. And hotels hire candidates that don't have a hospitality background if you have the right skill set or the right experience. Of course, it really depends on the role that you're applying for. Some roles do require more technical skills than others, but we consider all factors, not just your hard skills or technical skills.
All right, thank you, Sandra. And speaking of technical skills, actually, there's also another question that comes up quite a bit with hospitality applications. So, in your experience and in your professional opinion, what is more important, soft skills or technical skills or hard skills, as we call them?
They're both very important, but I would say that soft skills often weigh slightly more heavy in interviews. Hospitality experience always helps. Of course, they're always happy when you already come from that sector. But if you have the transferable skills such as customer service, leadership, you speak multiple languages, this is very highly valued, except for roles like kitchen, for example. In kitchen roles, it is important for you to have at least some experience having worked in kitchen or a restaurant or anything related to kitchen in the past. That's where I would say technical skills are very important. The rest, they focus very much on transferable skills and personality.
All right, thank you so much for sharing this, Sandra. I think that's very important, but it's also very reassuring to know that even if your background is somewhere else, for example, maybe somebody has been working in customer service or in retail, they still have certain skills that could be adapted to and transferred to a hospitality position. So for those watching who are unsure about whether or not to apply, please feel free to send us your CV and we will have a look. We may invite you to a discussion where we'll learn more about your transferable skills and your experiences. Okay, moving on to our next big topic, that is interview preparation. So I think, Sandra, you know this very well. Interviews are always a big moment for candidates, and it's also a very important part of the process where candidates make a good first impression on their HR or maybe even their future supervisor. All right, so with this in mind, I believe you mentioned part of the process of being matched with host organizations and preparing for interviews is that we conduct a prep call together with the candidate. So what exactly happens during the prep call?
That's right. Before you have your very first interview with one of the hotels or resorts, someone from our team will contact you for a prep call before. The prep call basically is a time where we explain the whole process to you of what you can expect with the next steps, and we give you preparation tips and guidance. So sometimes the interviews can be quite short, only 10, 15 minutes. So you don't have a lot of time to speak to the hotel. So it's really important that you prepare. So we share with you all of the different kind of points that we have for you.
All right, awesome. And as part of this prep call, actually, do you also share with the candidates what kind of interview questions they can expect, or sort of like what sort of information about themselves should they be prepared to share, you know?
Yes, so some of the common questions that we often have students prepare are, why are you interested in this role? Why this specific hotel? Tell us a time that you've handled a challenge and how did you face that challenge? Give us examples of you work well in a team. For these types of questions, we have a lot more that you can prepare, but of course we'll share those with you later. We also share preparation tips with you, some very basic tips, but other more in detail. When we send the offer to you, we share the information about the destination and the hotel, but we do really encourage you to research the destination and the host, brand values, what they offer, etc., before the actual interview, in case they ask you anything about their hotels. We also ask you to review your CV. Make sure that you know your CV very well. Be ready to discuss your different experiences or your education. Most importantly, make sure that you don't embellish anything. They're just interested in you and what you can do. They've already looked at your CV, so it's not, and no need to exaggerate. Just really be yourself, and make sure that you are able to introduce yourself effectively. One of the things that I always encourage candidates when I have this prep call with them is to work on a self-introduction. So important to prepare a self-introduction, typically less than a minute, something quick where you're able to say your name, talk about your education, mention any relevant experience to this role and why you're motivated in joining. So very important that you kind of learn like your little elevator pitch. That being said, it is really important that you avoid reading from a script. So please act natural. This is really, really, really important. No one wants to see you reading off a script or asking ChatGPT questions or things like that. So please avoid that. Just be yourself. You can have little points just to make sure you don't forget what you want to say, but don't have like sentences that you memorized word by word. Also, again, I mentioned this before earlier, but very, very important to have a professional experience, a professional appearance. Make sure you wear a nice shirt, make sure your hair is looking nice, that you're in a nice background or in a quiet place. First impressions, especially in the hospitality sector, are really, really important. So the host will really pay attention to how well you present and whether they'd be interested in having you at their hotel.
All right, perfect, Sandra. Thank you so much for sharing these excellent tips. I think my favorite one is the point about the short 1 minute introduction, because in my experience, I have heard from candidates that sometimes an interview can last maybe 10 minutes at most in some cases, because often each managers will be interviewing several candidates in their available slot of time. So you have to be prepared to make a good impression within those first few minutes. So this is critical, I would say. And another thing is also about the script. So I don't really work with host organizations, but I do work with first-time applicants. And I can tell you guys right away that it is very obvious when somebody is reading from a script. So I know we always do virtual interviews, and your interview with HR will also be online. So okay, maybe it's kind of easy to get notes or to, get instant answers from AI. But I highly recommend you not to do that, because it will be very obvious and it might make not a very good impression about your preparedness for this interview.
Yes, absolutely. That is very, very important. Alicia mentioned a very important point. Yes, the interviews can be very short sometimes. So 10 to 15 minutes maximum. That doesn't give you a lot of time to talk about a lot of things, especially if the hotel has a lot of questions for you. So yes, very important that you prepare that. But you should also, I always encourage participants to prepare a question to the hotel or the interviewer something like, what does a typical day in the role look like? What skills do you value the most, or would make me very successful in this position? HR managers or HR coordinators in general always like it when people ask something to show that you're really interested. So we always recommend that you prepare 1 or 2 questions in case there's time for them. Also to like fill the space if there's still a few minutes left. It shows that you're really motivated. And of course, when the time comes, we'll give you some kind of sample questions that you can ask, but you can also come up with your own. This is your moment as well. Not only are they interviewing you, but you can also interview them and ask them things that could be relevant to you, but not about benefits.
All right, thank you so much, Sandra. Yeah, this is also very important. And again, guys, don't worry if you don't get all these tips now, because once you join us and you register with us, we will, of course, have the whole preparation process, and we will let you know more details about this and more tips for the interview. Okay, so the next big subject that we're moving on to is timing and busy seasons. So as we all know, different tourist destinations can have different peak seasons depending on the flow of tourism, or maybe even, let's say, the climate there or the popular destinations in a certain country. And the peak hiring seasons can vary across different countries and different regions. So because you work a lot with hotels, Sandra, and you're a little bit more aware of that, could you share with us when are usually the hiring seasons among our host partners?
Yes. So peak season for tourism in countries in GCC countries or the Middle East, like UAE, Oman, Bahrain, Qatar, etc., their peak season is October through April. So generally, they're hiring now. They're hiring in August and September, so you can join in October or September to start training. So right now there's heavy hiring. The low season tends to be June, August. There's fewer vacancies at this time. Sometimes there's renovation in the hotels. It also really depends on when Ramadan lands in the year. Usually after Ramadan, things slow down. So sometimes it lands in April, sometimes it lands in May. It really changes, but the months to keep in mind, October through April, are their high peak season. In countries that are more in Southeast Asia or East Asia, like Thailand and Vietnam, Indonesia, etc., the peak season for tourism is also October through around March. These are the cooler months, not rainy season. So this is when all of the tourists from Australia, US, Europe are coming to Asia. So hotels will also hire starting from around July onwards. It doesn't mean that they're not going to hire during peak season. They can as well. But these are the months where they're really looking to get a lot of interns for the high time. The off-peak is usually the summer months, starting off from like around March, April-ish, right around Songkran, right around the time that it gets really hot and then monsoon season starts. There's less tourists, so they hire less. That doesn't mean they don't continue hiring. They do continue hiring throughout, but way less than they would in September, October to start the high season.
Okay, thank you so much for the insight, Sandra. And just to reiterate your point as well, we are open for hiring year round, I would say. But again, the number of vacancies as well as the speed of hiring might vary based on the peak season and the off-peak season. So normally, as Sandra mentioned, normally hotels would start hiring around 2 to 3 months in advance of their peak season. So that's why, for example, if you're aiming to start later this year, around October, November, we will typically have a lot of openings right now in summer, so July and August.
Absolutely. Yes. And also that means that there might be some slower recruitment. So since there is peak seasons, low seasons, while we accept candidates all year long, and we work with candidates throughout the year. Things might be a little bit slower if you apply during off-peak. Hotels are hiring a little slower. There's less spots available. So it might be a little bit slower. It's important that matching really depends, or the process itself really depends on the hotel schedule, their hiring needs. Some hotels are opening, or they're in their pre-opening stage, and sometimes they open way in advance of peak season. So they might hire a lot in the summer months when you don't expect them to, but we never really know. So just know that if you are applying during off season, it might be a little slower. That doesn't mean that we're not sharing your CV and doing a lot of things for you behind the scenes, but you might not see as many interviews in 1 week or in 2 weeks or in 3 weeks like if you would if you were to apply around this time right now.
All right. Thank you, Sandra. Yes, for all of you guys listening, if you watch this later, even if the process is taking a little bit longer, it's usually just a matter of timing and the season. And also, in some cases, some hotels might be looking specifically for seasonal interns or seasonal staff. So this, again, can also maybe increase the chances of you getting hired if you apply during a specific time. So again, with this in mind, just to answer some of the questions on the screen here, the process can vary depending on the hotel's hiring schedule and their hiring needs during a certain period or a certain month. And low season may mean slower hiring. So again, we will of course let you know. And if you have any concerns with that, you can just get in touch with your coordinator during that time. Okay. So moving on a little bit more to what to expect and a few common questions and frequently asked questions that we get from our candidates. It's usually about timing because a lot of people are worried like, okay, maybe I won't get my internship on time, or for example, you need to do an internship during a specific period because of your education. Let's say you need to go back on time for your exams, or maybe you only have 6 months off for your internship during specific periods of the year. So with this in mind, first of all, we recommend you to apply a lot in advance, or at least to start planning a few months in advance. And with that, Sandra, could you tell us about how long would usually the interview to offer process take? So by interview, I mean interview with the hiring manager of a hotel.
Yes, so once you've completed an interview with a hiring manager, like I said, we usually follow up within 1 to 2 days to get an answer. Oftentimes we do in that short period of time, but it can be more like 5 days, sometimes even a week and a half before they reply, especially if they're interviewing several people in a big batch at once. As soon as we have an offer, we will communicate that information to you, whether it's positive or negative. You will hear from us, but I would say about a week. Regardless, our team will let you know. If after 2 days we don't have an answer, we'll send you a message on WhatsApp, we'll send you an email and let you know that we're still waiting for a reply from the hotel. You're always kept in the loop.
All right, and with that, I would also like to remind you guys to check your emails as often as you can, because when we're in this process, sometimes we will need you to answer as soon as possible because we do have deadlines for offer acceptance.
That's very true. So once we send an offer to you, you usually have 3 to 5 days to accept or decline the offer. Sometimes it's less if the hotel is in a real hurry. So of course, if you're interviewing at different hotels and you're waiting, we try to get additional time for you to make the best decision. But it is very important, like Alicia mentioned, to check your emails daily because you never know when you're going to get invitations for interviews or offers. It can be 1 day after you interview, it can be 1 week after you interview, and the answer from you needs to come relatively quick.
All right. Thanks, Sandra. So let's move on to the next question. This is another one that we get really often. Let's say somebody does a few interviews and maybe they get a couple of offers back. And of course, when they receive an offer, they will also know all of the benefits, such as what's the exact allowance, what is the accommodation arrangement, and so on. And in some cases, candidates might ask us, like, oh, like I'm not really happy with this term of the offer. Can I still negotiate?
So some of the benefits are fixed and not negotiable, but that being said, always ask our team. If you have an offer and you're interested in accepting the offer, but there's something on there that you're not quite sure of, or you would want to try to negotiate, always ask. We will always try to negotiate on your behalf, or we will let you know if it's a very fixed offer. Always ask us. That's the main thing to take away from that.
All right, that's good to know, Sandra. And with this, I would also like to remind you guys that in general, if you have any questions, you're unsure about anything, or if you want to get more information, you can just contact our team directly, specifically your direct coordinator or the person who's in contact with you throughout this matching process with hosts. Okay, and then another thing is, again, a very frequent question that we get candidates. Let's say somebody does a couple of interviews and maybe they didn't get accepted for either of the positions or the hotel found somebody else. In your experience, how would you recommend somebody to handle rejections or handling like a longer waiting process?
So in terms of handling waiting times, like we said, it really depends on when you apply, hiring needs of the hotels. So it's really important to stay patient. Sometimes matching takes a little bit longer, depending on the destination or the department as well. Like I mentioned earlier, the more destinations that you're open to, the higher chances of you to get hired faster. And in terms of rejections, sometimes it's not really anything that you did wrong in the interview. Sometimes it happens that several people were good for the position and they just decided to go with someone else. If there is any feedback for you to have, our operations team will go over it with you. Like I mentioned, we do different hiring, pre-hiring a call. So let's say that you've had 2 interviews and you failed 2 interviews in a row. We will have another one with you before your 3rd interview, just to make sure that you're prepared, go over all the different points. Again, make sure that you know how to answer. Maybe last time you were a little too nervous and you said the wrong thing. So we'll go over all of those things with you. And also remember that rejections aren't always bad. It's not the end. We continue looking for opportunities for you and looking for the best suitable match. So just because you received rejection today doesn't mean that you won't get another interview for weeks. You could get an interview on the same day with a completely different hotel in even the same country. The opportunities that we get can come daily, can come fast, one hotel can tell us we're looking for 20 people to start in 1 month. That's 20 people that we need to get filled. Some hotels might tell us we have 2 people that we need to fill this position. So it really just depends. But most importantly, stay positive. And again, don't forget that we are constantly looking for good, suitable matches for you. And we are sharing your CV with our different hosts, even if you don't necessarily hear from us every day.
All right, thank you so much for the tips, Sandra. And just to add a little bit more to your points, I just want to reassure you guys that RMC Asia is here to consult you and to find the best option for you. And with this in mind, there will be cases where we might encourage or recommend you to add more options to your profile. So for example, if a certain destination that you selected is in its low season right now, or maybe you only pick one single destination, this might limit your opportunities. And in this case, if we see that your profile isn't moving forward as fast as we would like, we might recommend you to pick similar destinations in the area, or maybe, as we mentioned at the start of the session, we might offer you an opportunity in a hotel in a destination that you didn't select. So this is just the main reason for why we might do that and why we might suggest you to look at additional options. All right, so I think at this point we are at the end of our session, but as usual, I would like to open the floor for a quick Q&A. So if anybody in the audience has any questions, you can just drop them in the chat, or you can just raise your hand and let us know. So I'll give this a couple of minutes. Let's see. I think our audience is a little bit shy today, so I might ask Sandra a question of my own. I think for today, I would like to ask, because you work with host organizations and you have awareness of what are their vacancies or what kind of departments maybe they're looking for at a certain time, are there any departments at the moment that are looking for more applicants? Maybe they're less popular and they're kind of more open for applicants right now.
Yes, that's a great question. So actually, yes, we currently have quite a lot of hotels that are looking for participants specifically in housekeeping and F&B. So food and beverage. So if you are interested in any of those two departments, make sure that you include it, because we do have several hotels that have high need across different destinations for those two specific departments.
All right, awesome. Thank you for sharing this. And if nobody's asking anything else, I will ask just one other. Oh, I see Jason has a question here. Yes, you can unmute yourself and just let us know.
I had a question in the F&B section. When you say F&B, do you mean only the service section or plus the kitchen as a whole?
Yeah, so food and beverage department and the kitchen department are typically separate. So when I'm talking about F&B, I'm talking about like bartender, waiter, server, hostess, anything that's people facing. And the kitchen is more behind the scenes. So komi, assistant chef, things like that. Does that answer your question, Jason?
Yeah, and one more question. What about the kitchen section? Is there really the what is it called? Like high request for kitchen section? It's just mostly F&B.
No, we do have a high request from kitchen all across our different countries. So our more popular departments are kitchen, F&B, and front office, I would say. I just mentioned housekeeping and F&B because currently we have less applicants from those specific departments. So our hotels, our hosts that we work with are looking for them because we don't have so many at the time. Kitchen, we do have kitchen. We have a lot of kitchen applicants, is our most popular department, I would say. And we, of course, have many hosts that are hiring across the kitchen department for many different roles. Like I mentioned, it can be Komi 1, Komi 3, Komi 2. It can be even in pastry. We can just not guarantee you. If you're looking for a very specific role, it would take a long time. So when you're open to kitchen, we place you or find positions that are according to your experience, but also what our hotels are looking for. So sometimes it might not be exactly. So if you say pastry, I only want to be in the pastry department in the kitchen. Sometimes that's not the case because they're not looking for a pastry intern, but they might be looking for an intern that helps with like warm food, but also pastry or different things. We always share with you the offer and share with you, or the interview offer, the most information that we have in advance so you can make the best decision for you. But yes, F&B and kitchen are separate departments. Think of behind the scenes and front scenes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much, Jason, for the great question. And thank you, Sandra, for the insight. I think that was very helpful. And I think this is a good point for us to wrap up our session for today. Okay, so again, thank you so much, Sandra, for all of the information shared today. It was really informative and really insightful, especially for those who are maybe new applicants or maybe they're in the process where they are about to start getting interviews. And again, thank you to our audience today for joining.
Thank you, Alicia.
So for those of you guys who are new here, or maybe you're watching the recording afterwards or on YouTube, if you're considering a journey abroad or you want to get an internship in hospitality in another country, we are very excited to support you through this journey. And you can feel free to simply scan this QR code, which will lead you to our website and application form, or you can also just drop your CV in an email to hello@rmcasia.org. So again, thank you so much, everybody, and I will see you next month. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a good day.
Bye.